Hello, and allow me to introduce myself. My name is Lukasz Lipski, and I am an IT operations specialist working at Nordea Bank, Poland. And within Nordea, we're operating as a part of an organizational structure called Nordea IT Poland and Baltic countries. And we're responsible for IT support for branches located in Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. And we're maintaining and we're watching over our core banking systems, our e-banking systems, back office, test environments for our in-house development teams, and all the glue that holds this thing together. And when you look at it, when you consider how a large and complex IT infrastructure this is, and when you consider that this has to be under constant monitoring and surveillance, you would be amazed by the size of our Zabbix setup, because it's only about 300 hosts, 4K items, and 10,000 triggers. And this is somewhere between a small and medium-sized setup. And why is it so small for such a large structure? Because we're using Zabbix as a monitoring system for our Unix and Linux-based systems. We are using other monitoring solutions for other systems, but I'm happy to say, as I'm working with all of those systems, I'm happy to say that we're very pleased that it is Zabbix that we're using for our core banking solutions. And as I said, Zabbix is one monitoring system within our complex monitoring setup. And this complexity is also reflected in the complexity of our structure. We're dealing with event management tools, we're dealing with configuration management, we're dealing with support tickets from 3 different systems, we're dealing with constant monitoring alerts and planned changes. And there are systems for all of those, and for some of those structures there are multiple systems. And I believe that this complexity is not something uncommon, it is something that we all have to face. We have multiple systems, and we have a plethora of data, and it is a luxury and not an exception to have all of the relevant data in one place. So this brings us to my talk. And the 2 main points that I would like to get across is that first, bringing this data from different systems together has its benefits. And the second point is that those benefits aren't difficult to obtain at all. Because if I only told you that there are benefits in bringing data together, you would say, so what? What's the cost associated with this? So allow me to first present some examples in which bringing data from different systems together and combining them with data acquired from Zabbix can provide some benefits for organization. And in the second part of my talk, allow me to show you an implementation of one of those examples. So first, integrating data. Consider example number 1. Let's say you have a change management system, like BMC Remedy, which stores the information about changes planned within your organizational structure. You've got your core monitoring system, which is Zabbix, which informs you that a system just went down. And you have another system that stores events or incidents that are registered as soon as you think that something has gone wrong within your structure. What would be the benefit of bringing those 3 systems together? Well, by bringing this data together, this could allow us to figure out some associations between a change that is going on at the moment and some shortages within 2 of our systems that happened at exactly the same time. This might be a coincidence, but this might not be a coincidence. So how could we bring this data together? Well, one of the easier solutions would be to create a simple calendar within SharePoint and just feed the data from those, or perhaps another solution. And then at a glance, you could see that there is a planned change going on at the moment. And as soon as the maintenance period for the change is over, you've got 2 events because some system just went down. A second example. Let's say you've got those planned changes registered in SharePoint. And you've got a system state, which can be easily obtained from Zabbix. What would be the benefit of bringing this data together on one screen? Perhaps you could provide your fellow colleagues within the systems monitoring team with a real-time monitoring dashboard that would show both the system state and large status items and all the changes that are going on at the moment. So they could immediately check whether this change has something to do with the state of the system. How would this look like? For example, like this. What's the benefit? If I would be a member of a monitoring team that has something like this on the screen, I can immediately tell that if one of our systems goes down, and I see that there's a planned upgrade of the operating system on this machine, I see the owner of the change and I can call him. For example, when the system is still down and the scheduled dates for the change are already over. There are indeed some benefits associated with bringing data together. Here's an implementation example based upon a scenario that is closely related to one of the scenarios we had at work. And it is also closely related to the second example you've seen already. Consider that you want to create a dashboard. You have a small operating team of several people, 5, maybe 7 persons, and they work on a shift basis. One of those administrators comes to work late, and immediately there are 3 things he needs to know. He needs to be immediately informed about the system state. He also should know that there are some changes planned for the evening today, and it would be great if he could immediately have the names of other people that are currently on duty. And let's say that there's a task list. For example, some scheduled jobs that he needs to do today. Let's bring 3 of those things together on one screen. Let's bring this task list from SharePoint to make it easier. Let's bring the system state from Zabbix, our central monitoring system. Let's bring the contact list for all the people that are currently on duty. First, we need to get the data. We're getting the data from Zabbix using Zabbix API, which is one of the key features for us, as it allows us to interface with Zabbix in a very straightforward manner. Those 20 lines of code, perhaps even less, is everything you need to do in order to get an item from Zabbix using Zabbix API and using publicly available module or interfacing with Zabbix. And I can assure you, as well as Alexei, all of his fellow team members from Zabbix team, they can assure you that there are modules like Zabbix API for Perl available for every technology imaginable. How to get the data from SharePoint? Well, it's not difficult, but it's not as easy. It's not even on the same level of easiness like Zabbix. For an in-depth explanation, you can see a blog post about interfacing with SharePoint and proxy. And I'll just skip through this working proof of concept script that will get the first 10 lines from a predefined SharePoint list and print it out in a comma-separated format. As you see, this is an ugly list name, but that's perhaps the only way in which we can obtain lists from SharePoint. And this is all. We've got our two scripts that get the data. One of them gets a single value from Zabbix, and the second one gets a table of values from SharePoint. Now we need to focus on a presentation. We've got two basic building blocks. We've got two tables, and we've got a bunch of status fields. And building a static web page is considerably easier with Twitter Bootstrap. What we're aiming for is something like this. Two tables and a bunch of status buttons. And the whole HTML code for this example is here. So right now we have about 50 lines of code and HTML. And we're all set to go. We need to make some changes to the static web page in order to interface with our template engine. And as you see, those changes are fairly straightforward. The only thing we need to do is to envelope our tables within a loop, and the same goes for our status fields. And we can now prepare a config file for our engine. We will be getting some status items from Zabbix, so we need to specify the means in which we can obtain those items. We'll be using the script that was introduced earlier. And the same goes for tables. So, as you can probably deduce from this config file, the engine that we'll be going to implement expects the status items as 0, 1 values obtained from a script, and it expects that you point to a command that returns a CSV formatted output to the standard output as well for the tables. And here's the final code on 2 pages. As you see, we're just reading the config ini file using a ready-made module. We're initializing the template engine using a module. And we're processing the config file, executing the commands that get us our items, and executing the commands that put for the tables. A ready-made HTML dashboard for our fellow team members. I tried to show you that there are some benefits associated with bringing data from different systems together with data obtained from Zabbix. And I hope that those code examples, even if you miss them just as I did, I hope that they have shown you that it's not at all difficult. As I stated earlier, there are API bindings for different languages. There's an excellent one for Ruby. There's a nice Python one, which is a clone of the Ruby one. And for everything else, just look at the excellent wiki page provided by Zabbix. There you will find bindings to Go, PHP, all that you can imagine. I said that the Ruby one is an excellent one. Just look at the example. Yes, thanks to Andrew. And I must say that the Perl example that was shown to you earlier is based upon a public Perl module that is freely available in CPAN. But internally at Nordea, I couldn't use the Perl module after I've seen what Andrew was able to accomplish in Ruby. So internally, we're using our own wrapper. That's, from the point of user perspective, it's a clone of this one. When it comes to presentation, Twitter Bootstrap, I think all of you are familiar with it. But allow me to introduce you to Dashing. It's an exceptionally handsome tool written in Ruby. And what it is, it's a dashboard making framework. And what Dashing looks like is this. And yes, all the bling on one screen, shiny, full of shiny. And there's an interface with high charts as well for additional shininess. And this is what dashing looks like, but the most impressive thing for me is what dashing feels like. You've got widgets like this, and all you need to do in order to feed data to the widget is just post the data. You just post it to the widget and the dashboard is updated. So, it will be all. And are there any questions?
Hello.
Hello.
Have you considered doing a bilateral integration in terms of not only pulling data out of Zabbix to show on a dashboard, but also to put change information into Zabbix to put systems into maintenance for alert suppression?
Yes, we're using this for our WebLogic tools, for example, but it's impossible to, you see, for some of the systems, for example, if every ongoing change would be registered through Remedy or through SharePoint, it would be nice to make an interface that feeds the maintenance data to Zabbix. We've done something for our net banking system because we are expecting scheduled releases, and every time there's a release scheduled, we have an automatically registered maintenance period within Zabbix using Zabbix API. There were some we had some trouble with registering maintenance within Zabbix because of the way that Zabbix allows you to put a description to the whole maintenance period. But for example, if I would want to create a maintenance period for Q1 releases, I can put a description of this. But within this maintenance period, I can schedule different internal maintenance periods. And those internal maintenance periods associated with a single release within this Q1, Zabbix doesn't allow you to put a description. But aside from this, this is fairly straightforward. The only trouble is that you've got different systems, and not all of them present you with nice, clean data that can be easily introduced into Zabbix. For example, this seems a bit strange, but consider a change that has a start date, but the person that registered the change, which was formally approved, by the way, the person doesn't know the end date for the change.
Then
So-
it's per ISO definition not a valid change.
For example, they register a change that they want to move some standby systems from one data center to another, and they don't know how long will it take them. So this is a change that is visible on the board because you can get it from BMC Remedy or from SharePoint. You can put it on the dashboard like this one, but you cannot easily put it into Zabbix because you would have a maintenance period that is ongoing, and you wouldn't have any alerts associated with this one. So this is when the human factor comes in, and you've got a person that looks, there's this change ongoing, and it's quite possible that they aren't doing the change 24 hours a day, but this person should always take this change into consideration. If everything went according to plan, then it would be easily automatified, and we could register those maintenance periods straight into Zabbix, just as you said.
We have fixed start and end days, and we're actually creating maintenance periods per change to suppress. Because alerts are still visible. I mean, people are required to look at the Zabbix in dashboards and other tools that we have developed. So somebody is always watching what's going on. It's just a matter of not starting to sending out emails, sending out SMSs, utilizing PagerDuty to call people out of meetings when stuff breaks because it's an approved change.
But would you consider it a good practice to stop sending emails and SMSs if, for example, there would be a change that is going on with a start date and without an end date and is going on for 2 weeks already.
That's not something that is allowed in our environment. I'm serious, it's not. Because
yes.
it fails some of the ITIL definitions, and it's not good practice to have an open-ended change.
Yes.
Rather create a number of smaller changes for fixed time intervals than having
I can agree with you on this one. This is a horrible thing from a maintenance perspective.
Yep.
Yes, but this is something we have to live with, unfortunately.